How Israel became the most advanced country in agriculture. In the 19th century, there was a huge problem for those who decided to settle in the lands of Israel. Minimal rainfall and sweltering heat did not encourage farming at all in the country, and this made the land barren. However, the desire to make this area livable was much stronger, so citizens had to find ways to develop agriculture without water and fertile soil. Water scarcity has always been a problem that humanity has faced throughout history, and in the last century, this problem has reached a global scale. This terrifying trend was confirmed by an official study of the global water crisis. At the beginning of the last century, scientists found out that only 14% of the world's population, that is more than 200 million people, lived in areas with certain degree of water shortage. By the 1980s, that figure had increased to 42%, and by the 2000s, it shot up to 58%. Out of 3.8 billion people that faced water shortages, more than 1 billion of them lived in areas like South and East Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. Almost half of Israel's territory is occupied by deserts, so the issue of water extraction has also been acute at all times. Their main source of fresh water for a long time was Lake Kinneret. In 1952, the new state began to build a national water supply system that includes a network of pipelines, canals, and reservoirs from natural reservoirs and Lake Kinneret in particular. Simultaneously, hundreds of wells were constructed for the extraction of water from underground aquifers in the country. However, it was still not enough to meet the country's agricultural needs, despite significant success in the fight for fresh water. Amid the rapidly expanding population and booming industry, Israel is stuck with this challenge. The country's average rainfall has decreased over the years, and water resources have been depleted. The Israeli government, in trying to find a solution, has decided to turn its attention to the Mediterranean Sea as a new main source of water for agriculture. Now, about 50% of Israel's total water consumption is desalinated seawater. Other unique technologies are also used for the sustainable development of agriculture. Israel has made incredible progress in the so-called recycled water technology. This technology reuses water from irrigation of agricultural land by recycling wastewater. This country has invested over $750 million in centralized water treatment since the 2000s. As a result, 37 billion gallons per year were added to the country's total water production. There are currently 67 large wastewater treatment plants in Israel, 10 of which treat more than 56% of the country's wastewater collection. The largest water treatment enterprise is the Shaft and Wastewater Treatment Plant. In a day, this plant treats over 97 million gallons of Tel Aviv's urban wastewater. Wastewater usually undergoes secondary biological and tertiary treatment and is then sent through a pipeline to irrigate 60% of agricultural land in the Negev desert. Without exaggeration, Israel can be considered the world's leader in wastewater treatment. In the US, only 10% of water is recycled, while in Israel, almost 90% of water gets recycled. Israel's former Minister of Strategic Affairs and Public Diplomacy, Gilad Erdan, who is now Israel's ambassador to the United States, said, "Today, almost 90% of our wastewater is recycled. That is about 4 times more than any other country in the world. This is a remarkable achievement, and it benefits not only Israel. Israeli companies help to save water from all over the world, from Africa to California and India." Another technology with which Israel solved agricultural issues is drip irrigation. Rather than flood the fields with huge amounts of water and fertilizer, Simcha Blas, an Israeli hydraulic engineer, in 1956 proposed a way to transport water and fertilizer drop by drop directly to the root of plants. This technology was formed accidentally. Blas noticed that one tree was more luxuriant than others in the backyard, So he dug up the soil near the tree trunk and discovered that dripping water from a damaged pipe fell directly on the root of the tree. Although it took Bloss and his team a year to bring the idea to its logical conclusion, this drip system has helped restart agriculture in Israel and 109 other countries around the world. From tea plantations in Tanzania to sugarcane fields in the Philippines, Israel drip irrigation technology has been very useful. It consists of flexible hoses made of sustainable polyethylene with drips that equalize the flow of water along the entire length of the pipeline. The system also includes fitting for distributing water throughout the field, devices for water purification and filtration, as well as equipment for dissolving and dosing fertilizer. With drip irrigation, water flows evenly to all plants at the same value. The leaves and stems of plants do not get wet, so there is no danger of spreading of fungal infection. Also, the soil surface between the rows of plants remains dry, which prevents growth of weeds. This leads to increased yields. The system works in such a way that half of the water used in irrigation produces twice the yield. While the increased growth of population in regions with insufficient water supply, the battle for moisture seems to be a new reality that people would have to face in the coming decades. The technology used in Israel and exported to other countries has saved millions of people in the driest places on Earth. With the recycling water supply system, seawater desalination technology, and drip irrigation, Israel does not have to worry about the shortage of water and food despite climate change and a growing population.